Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Center of Destiny podcast. This is an exciting episode because it's the first time that we're welcoming another voice into this podcast. And this feels so incredibly special because of our guest, Maurice Harvey Hall, who is truly one of the most special confidants that I have in my life personally. And there's this communication that we have and this similar shared lens of perception that we have on the way that we see reality or the way that we try to orient towards reality. And so I really find this friend in my life who is really, he might not call himself this, but that is truly masterful in many ways in his ability to guide others. And what's so beautiful is that we sort of meet up in this way and have really powerful and psychologically intimate conversations. And it's like we meet up and we have little counsels about, okay, like, what are you finding about this reality? What are you finding about yourself? And my wish is that in this conversation, which is going to be quite natural, just like any other call that Mo and I would have, that somehow the frameworks that we're really learning to work with in our own lives, and then we have this shared communion over, will potentially be supportive to those that are listening. So just to further introduce Maurice Harvey Hall, Mo has been teaching meditation for about 25 years. He is a psychotherapist, internal family systems informed, trauma informed, works with EMDR, breath work, somatics, and non-dual consciousness. He is the founder of the Inner Light Meditation Center in Townsville, Australia. And he is a father, I think maybe even a grandfather. Is that true? Which is so beautiful. And this friend of mine is so special, which is why he is the first guest of the Center of Destiny podcast. And he's also the other half of Light Meets Dark retreats. So he's the other half of this series of retreats starting in Bali and will take place in other parts of the world that are really specified and focused on the intersection of shadow alchemy in its most authentic form and visionary illumination. And really the tantric union of the divine forces of light and darkness within us and learning how to harmonize them and work with them so that we can move through this world in an honest, true, and empowered way. So thank you so much, Mo, for being here. Thank you, brother. And I'm so excited to have this conversation.
Beautiful. Thank you, sister. I feel really honored. I wasn't aware that I was the first guest other than you. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation, as all of our conversations have been.
Always so rich. Yes.
Yeah.
So where I want to begin this conversation is the importance of our self-awareness around how we are not just this one singular being, that we are not just the identity of the one name that we have taken off. Like Tara is not just one thing. Mo is not just this one thing. We are an amalgamation of all of these intelligent aspects of our personalities, and some would call adaptations that we've adopted throughout our life, either through our triumphs or our tribulations. A lot of those adaptations can take place in us through trauma, through developmental years of our lives. And essentially because, and from the shamanic lens, what this is really referred to is soul loss or fragmentation. This idea that the whole self, or in IFS, what would be known as self-energy, is not always exactly the guiding force or the energy in the driver's seat of the moment or the relationship or the decision or the lens of perception. That sometimes these loving, intelligent, wise aspects of ourselves, known as parts, can actually be in the driver's seat, whether or not they're equipped to be driving in that moment or not. And so one of my favorite quotes that I really live by and that I notice is absolutely inherent to the human experience is by Carl Jung, who coined the shadow. And this quote is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate." And this is called the Center of Destiny podcast. So I really have an affinity for timelines, how the way that we are in the present moment really does impact the ripple of the type of future that we are choosing into. And because we all have a shadow, we all have a very widespreading unconscious, until we're aware of illuminating some of that that which has been hidden or repressed, then we're going to just be living in our lives potentially guided by the shadow, potentially by our fears or our resistances or the things that we've repressed. Not necessarily with conscious choice, until we're ready to do that deeper shadow work and illuminate what has been hidden. And therefore we have more choice over truth. Because if not, then we just do things in an automated way. We say things in an automated way. We show up in relationships in a certain way, and we don't even know a deeper why behind that. We don't know if it's a part, if it's self-energy, who is in the driver's seat. So it's super important when we talk about the visionaries who are really building their future, who are choosing, to really break certain cycles, potentially that they've inherited through their ancestry, certain patterns that they've watched play out in their lives, and ultimately find a way to disrupt those patterns and choose differently. And I think that IFS has been truly for me, it is a spiritual practice. It is honestly energy maintenance for me at this point. It's not something you do once and then you forget about it. It's something that I'm working with constantly. Not constantly, but it's a framework in which you get to harmonize your soul in the shadow and not have them in opposition with each other. And Mo can speak to this so beautifully as well. So I'm really excited to have this conversation that surrounds IFS, shadow alchemy, shadow integration. And I guess I begin this conversation by asking you, why do you feel this work is incredibly important for the human experience?
Yeah, wow. As I was listening to you, I could see these little bubbles of tunnels that I wanted to go down and just talk about that and bring this into it. And as I was tracking it, and it's interesting because we both have that mental projector lens of looking at things. So I receive you quite in a way that I project as well. So it's a beautiful combination. It's interesting, but I find that when we start to become more self-aware, we then start to consider who is the self that's aware and what is the awareness of self. So through meditation and through these levels of inquiry, we start to find many parts of ourselves, and these parts are really well illustrated through the internal family systems lens. And as you're saying that, who's actually driving the bus here? Because, and it's a great analogy that they use in IFS, is, well, who's actually creating? Who's the one who's got the most energy at this moment in time and feels that it needs to lead? Mm. And so when we consider that, whoever's leading, in a sense, is influencing the future realities that we're about to meet. So then it would be probably good to know who's leading, this beautiful phrase I found the other day, whoever is telling is spelling. Mm-hmm. So whoever's lens we are seeing life from and telling our story in that moment is then spelling from that space for that to then be manifest. And here is the art of manifestation. Mm. And I've found that the importance around this lens of seeing that there's parts of ourselves and then there's this self-energy, and self-energy is it's characterized by the essence of us. We're calm, we're compassionate, we're curious, we're connected. Creativity, confidence, courage, things like that. So that's a particular type of energy. when we recognize we've got these other aspects of ourselves, in a sense, these fragmented parts of ourselves, we start to feel into them. And we then become less reactive and more responsive because self-energy is inquiring into it. And this is where I'm feeling that as much as this life is relational, probably the most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because how you feel about yourself, how you think about yourself, what the stories that you have about yourself will ultimately influence how you interact with others. What is acceptable, what's not acceptable, what you'll allow or what you won't, what you think is possible and what you think is impossible. So, from a non-dual lens, from this spiritual aspect, we're starting to recognize that the now moment's really important, because it seems to be the only moment that I can anchor myself in and go, I'm here now. And then I start to recognize that I've always been here now and I've never actually left the now. And so the now is the opportunity where I'm creating as well as receiving. And the thing I love about the internal family systems approach, the shadow, the light, is that rather than creating from this lens where we're reactive, we're starting to notice that there's a reactivity within us. And what's meeting it is this self-energy that has curiosity and compassion. So even though these parts are being activated and they're emitting a particular energy, emotion, have their own cognition, and they want to do their own things, we're meeting it with compassion. So we're holding the shadow and we're creating with compassion. So in that now moment, we are compassion, even though we're feeling all of this other internal turmoil. And I feel that's where the power is, because then we're actually in unity consciousness rather than separation consciousness. So if we're in separation consciousness, I'm separate. I'm going to create from my parts, and my parts are there to protect me. So ultimately, they're doing the right thing. It's just that the way that they're doing it is sometimes uninformed. Sometimes it's coming from a place where it's very young and it's immature. And what we're bringing to it is we're updating it. We're giving it. We're seeing it. We're hearing it, and we're letting it know it matters. And we're updating it so it can then start to create from a different perspective.
Mm.
And then we're creating wholly and solely, and that's where I find the value within this shadow and the light. It's beautiful. I love Carl Jung, and yet I wasn't aware of that. That phrase was his. So I went, that's a beautiful point to come in there.
Yeah.
Because unless we're aware of it, then we're unconsciously manifesting, unconsciously creating, and we're calling it fate.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful. Yes. And I think what you speak to is really the beauty of this awareness that despite there being parts of us that might have their own beliefs or their own perspectives of what is happening, there is the moment, which is in the now, where we get to decide through our awareness if it's supportive to be seeing through that lens or being in relationship through that part leading us, or if we want to take a step back and ask ourselves, is there a more compassionate, is there a more curious, is there potentially a more confident or creative or calm, potentially, all of these traits that we equate to self-energy? Could those qualities come to the table? And if they did come to the table, and if they did lead, how would that potentially shift the moment now? Because as we can see in all of our lives, when curiosity is not present, when calm is unreachable, when creativity is null and void, and we're not feeling so confident, what we're likely feeling is a degree of insecurity, instability, fear of the past, or fear of the future, not knowing if we have it in us to be able to do something or actualize something, or potentially even being in our relationships and potentially having aspects of ourselves that are so designed to protect us from the vulnerability of opening our hearts that we might actually lose opportunities for connection or intimacy or belonging or love when it's right in front of us. And this is something that I see all the time as someone who has a deep affinity for the relational sort of aspects of life, relationship coaching, being in a relationship. And I really feel that unless we're aware of how powerful the shadow really is, we can believe that we have limitations around love, how much love we can receive or how much love we can give, limitations around how much abundance you can hold or how much abundance you could make, simply because we haven't been able to see beyond the perspectives of certain parts of ourselves. So, in other words, I also want to say that it's almost as if a higher part of you, let's say it is self-energy, your soul, a sort of destiny, is calling you forward to experience love in a certain way or experience your creative channel in a certain way, success in a certain way. Maybe you are destined for greatness. You are destined for something beautiful, that there's a longing or a desire in your heart. I humbly say that sometimes that's not enough. Like sometimes having a desire or wanting something is not always enough. And I've seen this in my own life because of the shadow. It's like we can only go as fast and as far as the most scared part of ourselves. We can want union. We can want to be a great father, to have family, to be a wonderful mother. We might want to build this business or speak on these platforms. And if there's parts of us that are truly designed to protect us from that very thing, protect us from rejection, protect us from abandonment, from being outcast, then sometimes the desire really is not enough to carry us forward into that goal or vision. We've got to reconcile and integrate and compassionately be with the parts of ourselves that might resist the very thing that we want. Can you speak a little bit to that, Mo, about this resistance that we might be carrying inside of ourselves in relation to parts?
Yeah, it's once again I'm picking up these other bits. What initially comes to me in this moment is, when we go on that path of, or when we say to ourselves, I'd like to heal myself, I'd like to become more aware. You're in a sense creating a spell. There's an incantation, and you're giving permission and consent for life, to manifest a reality where you've got the opportunity to see these things. Yeah. So that's probably first cautionary. When you go down on this path, be aware that you're going to shake up the tree, and things are going to be revealed to you. And it is important that you've developed enough self-energy that you can hold these parts as they arise, these thoughts, these aspects. Because if you can't hold them, then there's not enough trust in the system, and they'll continue to lead because they won't trust you to lead. So it's about creating a trusting relationship internally. That these wounded, these scared, these really insecure parts, these angry parts, these really beautiful protector parts need to trust you as self-energy, that you can lead them or at least walk with them initially. So that's this union that you're actually asking for. Now, that doesn't mean it's rainbows and unicorns and fluffy clouds. That means you're going to get a good kick. It's going to hurt. You'll feel it. That stuff that needs to be seen and heard will come to the top, so it's seen and it's heard. And there's definitely a resistance to that. For me, it feels like this, this is a part coming through now. It feels like it's ever ending. I'm noticing that there's a part here that's coming in. How much work do we need to do with this, mate? Haven't you cleared that yet? So that's its narrative. And thank you. Thank you for being here with me. Because what I'm also feeling from another part, or whether it's self-energy, is that we seem to be continually transforming, or having the opportunity to transform in each and every moment, whether we're aware of it or not. When you do become aware of it, then it becomes a real ride. Strap yourself in, because this is the human experience. And then it's about, that beautiful poem by Rumi, The Guest House. Welcome all these guests. Everyone that knocks at your door, welcome them in.
Anger, sadness, jealousy.
if it's a
Joy.
malice sweeps, and see them as a gift or a guide that's been sent from beyond. So it's really, okay, today who's going to be knocking at my door? And this is where I find that I call it's a concept called vertical living. So rather than just skimming across the surface of life, we've got this opportunity to go deep. And the deeper that we go, the more of us we find, the more of us we experience. And there's a richness within that. So, if you choose to step down this path, then you will become a very rich person, very rich soul, because there's such a richness of the depth of who you are. And I also feel that the souls that have chosen, that might activate some people, the souls that have experienced the darkness are souls that have also the strength of the light to hold whatever that is. And that is a powerful soul. And I continually want to honor all of those souls that have been in those positions, as well as my own experience. So, it's this resistance to, and yet, once again, it's this lens of if I can see this as for me, something's happening for me, life is happening for me, it's not happening to me. And this is a gift. Here's an opportunity. And I can see myself, and then I can hold it, I can update it, I can allow it to be eased, I can be a part of that process. And that way then it starts to trust me. And then we walk together using its skills, my skills. Yeah.
Because what would potentially be the cost of not being able to meet these parts with love, recognition, active listening, compassion? Like, what would be the cost of not having an awareness that these are parts and that there's self-energy that can hold these parts?
That's right. And it then becomes a very reactive experience. That's what your life is. It's fully reactive because your parts are hypervigilant, looking out to protect you, reading the environment for threat. And if they're not given any other information and other ways of doing things, then that's what their blueprint is. That's what their role is, and they play it so well.
Yes.
There's self-sabotage is such an intelligent part. It's really hard to see, and yet that's the way it was designed. You're not supposed to see it until you then become aware of it, and it feels safe enough for you to see it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I've had many occurrences where I've come to you around, oh my God, I found this really nasty, sticky thing. I don't even want to call it nasty. I'm just being like cheeky with that.
Yes.
But there's all the time that I realized that what I believed was an experience that I was having from the truest intuition, or this thing that I'm so convinced is the truth, when I actually go beneath the iceberg and I go really deeper into the shadow inquiry, I realized that it was actually not the highest truth that was present at the table when I was seeing through that lens. And I think just to sort of make this all even more understandable through like an experiential example, it's like if you have not had a lot of examples of really healthy, conscious, sort of divine union templates of love. Say you've had a lot of trauma potentially that you experienced as a child with your mother's line, your father's line. Say that self-worth, self-value has been always, something you've been trying to embody more of. And you've traditionally, because of a disconnection from self-worth or self-value, attracted situations and sort of relationships that weren't really a reflection of what you wanted, that didn't really honor who you are, or that type of relationship wasn't capable of giving you what you really needed. And because that becomes a pattern for so long, and because anything outside of that would be so foreign to your nervous system, you didn't experience that in childhood. You certainly didn't experience it in all these other relationships. You continuously had to cope with needs unmet. And then we sort of are always searching for someone to come meet those needs until you realize that they only come when you can first resource that from yourself. But say God gives you a perfect example of a divine union. It's like, here you go. Here's the thing you've been praying for. Here's an example of a love that is committed to evolution and transformation and truth. And you have two people that are willing to grow within the container of the relationship. Just because you have that gift from God, which is here's the relationship, does not mean that suddenly all of your parts that came with you in all the relationships prior have gone away, that they've suddenly been null and void. If anything, this type of relationship catalyzes them even stronger, as if the relationship is summoning the reconciliation with these parts. And I've realized in my own life time and time again how, gosh, these narratives that some of these parts have that are completely untrue when I look deeper. And I don't need to give examples, but underneath it, these might sound like, we're not unlovable. You cannot trust. Everyone leaves. And that might show up in, see, like I knew it. There's something to be cautious about. It might have all these stories that this person, your partner is doing this when really it's actually not objective truth that that's happening at all. Or you're constantly wanting to run, like the nervous system is saying it's not safe to experience stability. We are used to chaos. We are used to wondering if a man is going to choose me or not. So it's freaking weird to have someone who's so devoted and consistent, and then all the parts start freaking out. So this is just a real example, and it's a personal example of really how this might show up in the example of a relationship. And I'm curious to hear from you, Mo, because for me, relationship has been probably one of the greatest catalysts to know my shadow. For you, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey of shadow work? What brought you to this place, and what consistently seems to catalyze this integration for you?
Yeah, wow. Thank you for those beautiful examples. I could definitely align with probably half of those. And I've got my own subcategories over here, Yeah, the relationship, I feel, is the perfect place for you to find yourself. And I also, there's this bit of an idea that I've got in my mind that you'll only ever meet another at the same place that's reflective of where you are within your frequency and what you believe about yourself. And it seems to make sense because as I'm feeling more confident, more courageous, more compassionate, creative, I'm feeling quite solid in myself. I'm probably more so likely to create healthy boundaries or invest myself into energies where I'm getting a resonance and probably pull myself out of energies where I'm not. So I feel that we're naturally shifting and changing within our own frequency. So relationships are a good way to see ourselves. They're a pretty good mirror. And I usually find within relationships, if you can identify, I've had, some recent experiences when I'm saying to my partner, I'm saying, hey, I just don't feel like I'm being heard. That this part is saying, I just don't feel like I'm being heard. And then, and then Ali's saying, well, that's what my part's saying. Oh, wow. So both of us are actually seeing the mirror of each other by utilizing each other as a catalyst to see ourselves in that. Mm. So I find that when someone is aware of this system or this perspective of self and you're in relationship with them, then it's still challenging, and yet there's the repairs come quicker than from the ruptures, whereas in the past you'd have a rupture and then the rupture would stay a while, and there may not even be a repair, or the repair is not fully mended. I notice that the rupture and repair process is more condensed. Now, if you don't have a partner, then it's also good to have another who can track you around these concepts too, to then talk through and just get another perspective of that, or even another mirror of that as well. Uh-huh. It's also helpful then that you've got enough self-energy to hold those parts, because then there's a reflective process that's happening there. And then when you catch up with the other, hey, I'm noticing this is what I found. And this is, I think, what we do quite well is whenever we're catching up, what's going on for you, brother? What's going on for your sister? Well, this is what I found, And it's a beautiful, it's not that, we're messaging each other going, hey, this is what's happening. Can I get some help on this? It's more so, I've gone through this process. This is what I've got, and I'd like to share it with you. Mm-hmm. So where you can find others in that. Here at the Meditation Centre, we talk in the language of parts. So a lot of the community that come here are more and more aware of that within themselves, and we're fostering and promoting that perspective, because we then find that it not only creates this interpersonal relationship, but this sangha, this community, it then becomes really resonant within the mirrors, and one is also able to hold the other one's rupture when it happens. Like just watching it in a community is incredible. Yeah, and then it's encouraged, it's promoted, it's honoured. There's deep compassion that seems to be arising through these authentic conversations.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm noticing more and more when the awareness through this lens is perceived and shared.
Yeah, which allows, in a community, when there's opposing perspectives or someone is potentially triggered or is holding a challenging experience, first and foremost, there's a safety in this space because they can say, a part of me is having this experience because of this, rather than I'm having this experience and it's because of X, Y, and Z.
That's right. Yeah.
Because the difference is it becomes a team effort. Like, oh, these are the parts that are showing up for us. So when this part shows up, it activates that part in you. And there's sort of now like this other awareness in the room that everybody has equal access to, that is observing the situation and able to sort of bring resolution or repair to by working as a team, rather than the reactivity that comes from, this is the reality of what's happening, and I'm convinced that this is what is happening, and this is what I need from everyone, versus I'm curious about this experience that I'm having. And then others being able to meet you in that place. Yeah.
Curiosity is one of the greatest skills that you can have. And if you can develop and cultivate compassion, then you're on a winner. Because when there's curiosity, it creates space between the one, me and my thoughts, in a sense. I'm curious about that thought. Oh, I just noticed that this came in. Well, where did that come from? So I'm curious about it. And when we're coming from curiosity, we are in self-energy. From an IFS lens. Now, the other interesting thing I find with the IFS is that, we're sort of talking about psychological processes here, the mind, and we're recruiting this concept of higher self as a similar energy to what self energy would be like. Yeah. Right. So I like the IFS conceptual model of the mind, because you can overlay it with spiritual overtones or undertones even too, So what I've noticed through my practice is that there seems to be self energy, there seems to be parts energy, and then there's awareness of self interacting with parts. So then I was inquiring into this awareness, and maybe that could be seen as you as consciousness, as you as spirit. So you get to have this really trifecta of an experience where you've got a consciousness perspective, you've got a self-energy perspective, and then you've also got parts energy perspective, all contained in this one container called you.
Yes.
And at any point, you can be one of the three, and all held just in one big container that you are all of that, which I find an absolutely fascinating experience as being human, like that you can have this experience and be able to hold it all at particular times with self energy. I'm certainly not levitating around the streets all the time and in prayer position. I'm reactive. I'm noticing my parts there and being able to hold them at times, and at other times I don't notice that I'm coming from a part. Until I then become curious. I go, oh, hang on, I've just been apart for the past 5 minutes, past 10 minutes, past hour. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, once again, there's the richness of this experience.
Yeah, and I think from that non-dual lens that you and I are always coming from, it's really beautiful also not to assign meaning to any of those vantage points as good, bad, the one that you should
Yes.
be all the
Yes.
time. I think what you're leading to is that there's a richness in allowing for whichever vantage point you're seeing from, because in some way it serves the moment, and ultimately all of it serves awareness and development and growth and knowing oneself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you seem to be in the moment constantly, and you're one of three or multiple other vantage points. And that seems to be your experience, which you seem to, remember or continue to carry. And then that thing seems to be your life. So you can break it down to these individual parts, and then you can then have this beautiful ontological view that all of that's happening just in this now moment.
So, can we talk a little bit about spelling again? Because I feel like what you're referring to is like, okay, so like the experience ends up being this compounding experience that is your life. And, why is it magic for us to become aware of the spelling, especially when it is a desire of ours to change a narrative or see something differently in this reality, experience ourselves and other in life in a different way?
Yeah, so spelling, the importance of spelling.
Hello, family. I have a special invitation for some of you. This is a clarion call for the aligned souls who will be joining us on retreat in Bali, Indonesia in August of 2025. Join us in the sacred northern mountains of Bali for 7 nights of soul initiation, where we will come to explore the deep and rich inner workings of your true nature. I'm co-hosting this transformative space. It is a dimension with a profound capacity to hold you in the fullness of your darkness and the brilliance of your light. So welcome to the Light Meets Dark experience. This offering is truly juicy as it explores the archetypes of the Bodhisattva and the dark magician within. Together, you'll be learning and integrating these energies, these forces within yourself so that you can live more connected to your heart while simultaneously cultivating your power with precision. Visit lightmeetsdark.com to apply. I cannot wait to meet some of you live in my favorite ancestral lands of Bali.
Yeah, so spelling, the importance of spelling. What's coming to mind initially is imagination, and I heard this from someone I was watching, and it was it's the imagination. So you're a nation of magicians.
A nation of magicians.
When you use your imagination. Yeah. So this concept of spelling, now, you can go classic, Wicca style incantations, different ingredients, that sort of thing, ceremony. And there's a lot of power in that because even the ritual of the ceremony is part of the spell.
Yes.
And then it's something that you bring into it. When we have cacao ceremony, we're creating, those containers. Even breathwork journeys, creating those containers. Tea ceremony, creating a container. Mm-hmm. I'm talking more so around the spelling that we do each and every moment in our minds, each and every time that we tell someone our story. Hey, how are you today? Oh, day's been shit. Kids are doing this, that's doing that, don't have enough money. Are you seeing this? So each time that you say that, you're then creating a reality that's reflective of it. And you've got the words that you're saying, but also then the state, the consciousness or the emotional state, which has frequency, which then also emits that. Because remember too, that in each and every moment, you're not only creating, but you're receiving. So you're creating a future reality and receiving realities that you've already created in the so-called past. So when we look at parts and we look at self-energy from an IFS lens, parts will have a particular narrative. They've got their own belief system and they're dogged. They actually literally believe that that is the case, and there's an emotional quotient that comes from it as well too. So they're really good at spelling because they already know what they're talking about. right? There's no, I hope this or this is the way it is. They are so dogged. There's a deep sense of knowing when your parts spell. So
Right.
that's what you're, in a sense, competing with. If you're not aware of it, then your unconscious is literally spelling a deep knowing upon your field of awareness in the now. So, yeah.
Is another word for spelling our beliefs?
Yeah, well, it's the manifestation of the beliefs.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm now speaking it out. I'm feeling it, and that then creates the explosion, in a sense, the explosion of creation. And life is so loving. It's just going, oh, you want to create more of that? Cool, no worries. Oh, more of that? Yeah, no worries. That's fine too. It's just giving. It's loving, and deeply compassionate, and this concept of free will. So it's important to become aware of who is telling and who is then spelling. So if self-energy is able to hold, then I'm actually spelling from a place of compassion and curiosity. So that then creates more compassion and curiosity.
Where my head is kind of going is, it's interesting because I think at this point, anyone who's listening to this, like a lot of us have been sort of learning how to manifest differently, how to change our beliefs. And I'm even thinking of like blowing that up with like movies like The Secret, like sort of more mainstream ways of changing your mind, breaking the habit of being yourself, Joe Dispenza, And oftentimes, like we become aware that like, okay, I've had certain manifestations, certain spelling because of these beliefs. I know that maybe, just maybe, I don't really like the way that I'm feeling, or I don't really like the way that I'm noticing there's patterns of manifestation in my life. Like I just can't seem to get this or get over that or acquire this or share that, all of these different things. And taking the framework of what we're talking about, which is there's an energetic vibration that you emit because of a belief, and then the way you affirm those beliefs through your spelling, and also the way that your body is telling that story. And at the same time, the reason why shadow integration and this parts work is so important is because just because you become aware that you don't like a belief because it's not serving you, or that you could spell a different way, doesn't mean that there's not going to be aspects of you that are deeply protecting you from that change, or that aren't going to be in the way of you trying to feel better, which is why there's a paradoxical thing, which is like to affirm, like affirmations or sort of mindset work, like writing on the mirror, like I am beautiful, I am powerful, like I am limitless. Like this is an incredible way to start to change the narrative in your subconscious. And at the same time, I feel like a lot of people can do this sort of more mindset work, but without the deep acknowledgement of the shadow, which is that which we have no awareness of. Like nothing would be the shadow if we were aware of it. The magic of shadow work is to come into contact with that which is unconscious. And what we're not realizing is so much of the unconscious is actually sometimes rippling and creating in our lives, right? That's the place that we're spelling until it feels safer, until the shadow is not sort of creating without the self energy in connection to it, without compassion holding its hand. Do you feel what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's not enough to just try to change your frequency vibration or think better thoughts unless we can really meet the pain or the wisdom or the voices of what these more unconscious parts really feel or think.
Yeah, essential. What was coming to me, with writing things, say, on the mirror and you speaking them out, I would be then just watching what the inner narrative is as I'm saying it, because sometimes it's, I truly believe that. Oh, I'm feeling more of that today, or other times is, you got to be kidding me, you're joking, aren't you? So that's where your shadow is. It's coming in to saying, no, we can't accept that belief yet because we don't fully believe it. There's a belief that's that's blocking it, or, in a sense, and which then is the beautiful opportunity to then inquire into it. Or even then noticing that those thoughts shouldn't be here. I need to suppress them, and I just need to focus on this. So even that's another shadow that's coming into then trying to protect you from these other ones too. So yeah, I'm just going to bring AI into this one. I was listening to an AI, and it was talking about this reality being holographic in nature, and basically it was mirroring your deepest knowing. And I thought that was a really interesting way of saying manifestation, is that you'll only manifest what you know. And if you know doubt, then you'll manifest doubt. If you know scarcity, you'll manifest scarcity. If you don't know abundance, then how can life reflect it to you? Right. However, in saying that, you may be, if we're looking at, say, abundance, we might be looking at wealth as our indicator of abundance. If we could just start to shift, because see, it's an indicator, it's an outward representation. What we're really trying to tap into is the frequency of abundance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I found on this journey that my life has become even more rich just in finding out about me. So there's an abundance of parts that I can hang out with, and there's abundance of learning. There's an abundance of opportunity, So now I'm starting to shift, because if I don't have it in the monetary sense, then I can at least start to tap into the frequency of where I've already got it. And then I might then start to look at, okay, I seem to have it in all of these other areas, but money seems to be something that's missing here. I wonder what my shadow is saying about money.
Can we keep going with this? Yeah. This might be support.
Yeah. So then it might be, well, then I could inquire into what are my beliefs about money, that sort of thing. Only rich people have money, and rich people aren't seen in a great light, or I have to sacrifice myself to have money. Unscrupulous people, guilt, that sort of thing. So I would be considered this if I had money. Or I don't like those people because they've got money. So, of course, you're not going to allow yourself to have money, because then you would be associated to the people that you're rejecting.
Yeah. And having money might be a consequence or a result of you committing to some sort of devotional offering of your service and your creativity in this lifetime.
Yes.
And if money equals the sharing of yourself, and that's the most terrifying thing in the world, yes. That's why money is a bad thing. Yeah. That's why I don't need it. It's not important. Or I might lose resonance or relatability to my friends, my family, the people who I belong to, because if I became big, or I had this amount of money, or I had this much access to whatever, I might lose my connection to people. I might be triggering,
Yes.
And
yes.
so therefore it's safer for me to play smaller.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then it becomes a safety threat thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I as a practical term, I'd probably look at the things in my life that I believe I don't have. Right. So that's a good place to start, because that's going to show you some shadow.
And if someone wants to change their knowing, because it's true what you said, which is we manifest from that which we know.
We know.
And what we know it's not some omniscient, objective truth. It's a very subjective experience.
Yeah.
So if someone's like, well, I've only ever manifested from certain things that I know because it's foreign for me to know otherwise, what would you suggest about transforming our knowing?
So initially, coming back to the frequency of whatever it is that you want to know,
and finding evidence of that.
Yeah, because we probably already have it. It's just it's not in that manifestation of it, but we've got it over here in other manifestations of it. And so that's where I would then start to go, well, how come I've got it here but I don't have it here? Maybe there's some shadow stuff. Maybe there's some belief systems. Maybe there's a different sense of knowing in relation to that area. It could be intimate relationships. It could be, even just a harmonious workplace. Every place I go to, it's just, people are always fighting. So, and it's pattern recognition as well, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which then takes me to the intersection of all of this with the ancestral healing, like recognizing that even in our genetics, in our genome, we're holding pattern recognition beyond this lifetime. There are stories of your ancestors that live in your cells and your bones that you end up sort of playing out, their natural dispositions, for better or for worse. And so that's why the ancestral healing is really important as well. And it also, similarly to the relief of the compassion from self energy that meets the scared part, there's a relief to feeling like we're all on an ancestral journey. We've all inherited something. My pain or the ways that I have trouble with love, or the ways that I have trouble with parenting, or the ways that I have trouble with money or sharing my voice, that maybe, just maybe, it's not just a me thing. This might have been played out in my ancestral lineage before. There might have been ancestors who were more comfortable shutting down their voice, who lived a life long of throat chakra blockage and normalized that. And that's why inside of you, there's a disposition to hold back your voice as well until you're willing to sort of break that cycle. So there's a compassion that comes with that, which is a recognition that our problems, our shadow, our pain is really not just ours, nor is it just our lineages. It's also collective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got this really beautiful opportunity, I feel, through this work or this lens, to heal ancestral wounds. So if we're looking at the lineage of, genetically up to, I think it was 9 generations or 14 generations, it's something like over 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So we're carrying 1,000 years of ancestral stuff that we're probably not aware of, that we think is inherently who we are, and yet it's the backpack that you've been carrying through this. That's the thing. So there's an opportunity to recognize that, do some healing around it, allow that process to be resolved, allow it to come back into the light. And from there, we're then creating ancestral healing, which will then inform our genetic code for the next 1,000 years.
Yes, as the future ancestor.
As the future, as our descendants will, I guess, in a sense, reap the benefits of the work that we've done in relation to our ancestral stuff.
Beautiful.
It's a really powerful moment, when you become aware of it.
Is there anything else, Mo, that feels alive in you around this conversation?
Probably just for anyone who has found this IFS discussion helpful, there's a multitude of resources online for free. YouTube, I would just be looking at Richard Swartz' Internal Family Systems, so much stuff there. He has a lot of audio books as well as books, and there's many great quality IFS resources out there on the market. And the thing too with IFS is that you don't have to be a therapist to get the full benefit out of this or go to therapy. You can become aware of this a lot within yourself, and then as you're starting to become aware of it, then maybe seek out a professional or someone who's informed in IFS therapy, and then that would then deepen your journey in this process.
That's beautiful. Yes. Or come to Light Meets Dark retreat in Bali with us.
We're going to talk a lot with that. So
I think I just want to probably close the conversation on what about we didn't get to speak about exiled aspects of ourselves. And I do want to just bring one more little dose of this sort of medicine before we land the ship, because we've been talking so much about the shadow, and I think this is a really great place to begin. I have a feeling we're going to do many more of these talks together in different formats. It's one thing to meet your unconscious and the more shadowy parts of yourselves that are creating opposition in your life or creating resistance, right? There's another thing to knowing the really brilliant or big or sort of magical, divine, influential, powerful, creative aspects of yourselves. And sometimes I find that we can almost do the shadow work more easily when it comes to looking at our blocks, looking at what is inhibiting us. And then there's a whole other side of the shadow work, which is to integrate the unexpressed, to integrate all of the actually magnificent, like light parts of yourselves, the visionary illumination side of things, like it's sometimes easy to process the way that, oh, because of this inner child experience, I have trouble with this. And it's another to be like, oh my gosh, like I think that I could potentially deeply impact the world through this specific unique thing that could only come through me. And then the voices that might come and say, who do you think you are? What do you think is special? Like that's kind of narcissistic. And the other example, this is my projector mind, the other example of really reaching a breaking point with someone, like being completely disrespected. Someone is not someone that you can repair with. And a part of you that could potentially be vicious, a part of you that could potentially completely not just set a boundary, but let someone know that you are not to be fucked with. I'm talking about the people that really come with like unsafe sort of violent energy. And we do need, in my perspective, access to those type of parts of us as well. The parts of us that can bite, the part of us that can scratch if we need to. So like, I'm talking about like that sort of like the more wild parts of ourselves that we might not have practice embodying in our day to day or in the normalcy of our relationships. And I think I bring this up because that's a big part of, this retreat of ours. It's like actually a training space to be able to practice those parts of ourselves uninhibited, a safe place to express them so that when we're in our normal lives, we're not going to like have to bring out the fullest, turn it up 100 notches, this thing, but even just a little access to your fierceness when it's needed, or that access to confidence when your confidence would actually serve the moment and the people around you is a good thing. Could potentially be really valuable to yourself and others.
Powerful. I love the wild parts of us that we don't allow out because it's not safe enough, apparently, in the environment. And just to get a glimpse of that, just to that fierceness. That's another beautiful word. That fierceness, that ferociousness. When we look at the retreat, it's those archetypes of the bodhisattva and the dark magician. It's a demon's hand, Buddha heart. So to be able to yield with a demon's hand and yet hold it with the Buddha's heart, that's master play. So that's something that is a skill that we can practice.
Which requires permission. Yeah. And just to speak to that, brother, like, why is that important? Because you and I both hold Asian lineage, Asian wisdom, Asian ancestors. And I think the reason why we're creating these series of retreats called Light Meets Dark is because it is the Tao, it is the harmony of opposites, the merging of opposites, the primordial yin and yang that really informs this in equal measure. And as we know in like Chinese medicine, it's like when something is imbalanced, it's about bringing balance. And so the demon's hand and the Buddha's heart, we must all be aware of in this world, we know the people who easily throw around their demon hands. Like they're constantly influencing through the power, the status, their leadership, their ability to influence, which is dark magician. But without a beautiful connection to the Buddha's heart, the bodhisattva heart, what is that power for? It's in service to self, service to the greater whole, service to innocence, service to a regenerative world that is great for everyone. And then you swing the pendulum on the other side, which is those with the Buddha's hearts, wink, wink, and those who naturally have a disposition to want to help, that want to serve, that are kind and compassionate and empathetic and always try to see the good in others and can really resonate with people when they're in pain. You know, a lot of us probably listening are sensitive souls. We've probably been that way since we were young. And that's beautiful. It's noble. It's valuable. And at the same time, without a balance of the dark magician in all of us, we can often experience the cost of being kind in that way without boundaries. Sometimes you're easily manipulated. Sometimes you're easily taken advantage of. Sometimes you're sort of in the background rather than taking up space as the lead, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're always compromising your truths or sort of suppressing things beneath the surface without really letting yourself be fully known. A lot of us that are on this side of the pendulum have difficulty being seen as the bad guy in someone's story, or can't imagine, you know, someone not liking us, even if we don't need that person to like us, you know? So it's important that the bodhisattvas and those with the Buddha hearts can also learn to wield the demon's hand, because in this world, in this paradigm, a sense of fierceness, power, precision, boundaries, directiveness, containment, and really like focus and being able to manifest from your imagination, your nation of magicians, is the type of impact that this world needs. Like people who have the opportunity, the skills, the knowledge, and the confidence to lead and be visionaries in the world, but from this place, from the heart. Yeah, beautiful.
That was beautiful. Love it.
So that is how we will close this conversation. And Mo, if people want to find you, how do they find your work?
It's a good question. Primarily, I'm working at the my work is the Inner Light Meditation Center, and you can contact me there. It's do work online, very much in person. Just
Beautiful.
And happy just to have a chat. So yeah,
Beautiful.
Inner Light Center. Yeah.
Okay, and you
Thank
can
you.
find in the show notes all the links to connecting with Mo in that way. And we will potentially see some of you guys in August in Bali for the Light Meets Dark retreat. This was an incredible conversation. I'm continuously grateful for the reflection in the mirror that you are for me, and our continuous, collaboration and like, what's the word that I'm looking for? We're like allies. We're really allies in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And I remember you once looked at me and you were like, we come from the same mystery school, not of this lifetime. And I really feel that quite deeply. And we met over tea as well.
We did.
Tea training.
Yes.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Mo.
Hello, beautiful humans. Thank you so much for following along this episode the full way through. My closing message is this. If you are loving the Center of Destiny podcast and you want to help grow and feed this field, please do follow us, subscribe, and rate the podcast. And should you feel inspiration to connect outside of this space, you can always find me at thecenterofdestiny.com. There are opportunities to join me live on retreat, to work with me in a deep way, one-on-one, and to access a free ancestral healing module when you subscribe to my email list. Thank you so much for being here, community. It is truly an honor to bring this content to you. And I am sending you all of my love. Many blessings.